Suppose I were to tell you that to be a great dancer doesn't require long, hard hours at the gym. It doesn't require long, hard hours of repetitious training. You don't need a drill instructor yelling at you and correcting you when you make a mistake. You can just go out and enjoy yourself. Just go out and enjoy life. Just go have a lot of fun. And you'll pick up the dance steps as you go along spontaneously. Yeah, maybe if that were my approach to dance instruction, maybe I would have 23,000 views on my most recent video, the way Steve Kaufmann does with his advice for how to learn a language. Let me just read you a couple of titles here. Quote, you can't memorize a language. Quote, don't try to memorize language vocabulary. Quote, when learning a language, don't study the basics. Steve Kaufmann, Lingosteve. Why do you think this is so popular? And if you even just think it through as a thought experiment, so you have a bunch of people and you want them all to be able to do the same dance. You want them to be able to master the same steps to the same dance. It doesn't really matter much for this thought experiment whether you are thinking of a hip hop dance, the dance to rap music, or that newfangled Korean style of pop music where they all dance in formation, or like an 18th century aristocratic ballroom dance. Doesn't really matter. Conjure up any image you fucking want in your mind. Let's say we have 5,000 people who are all going to learn this dance, and 2,500 of them over here follow Steve's method. They just go out and enjoy their fucking lives. It's just, wherever you happen to, go out drinking, go out to ballrooms, hang out at nightclubs. Just think they're just going to pick up this dance. They listen to music, they enjoy themselves, right? And 2,500 of them go through the hard process of forced memorization of the dance steps. When we put this to the test, you can imagine different ways how to test this. Who actually knows how to do this dance? Who has mastered? Who can, in a split second with no preparation, get on stage and do the dance? Who's prepared to do it at a moment's notice? Who do you think's going to win? Who's going to have the best set of outcomes? Now, Steve Kaufmann, you look up how many years he has doing Chinese. Just look at the complexity in the Chinese language of writing the two characters, 我是, just I am in Chinese. You don't think you need to practice. You don't think the exact opposite of what he's saying is true here. And I note the cowardice of his final claim in the video that if you follow his method, if you follow his advice, you will enjoy your life more. You'll be happier. What a claim. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were teaching me the philosophy of happiness, of what it is to be happy. Hey, that's a grand old tradition going back to Plato, going back to Aristotle, going back to the Stoics. What is the true meaning of happiness? Is it to fuck around for 10 years and never learn Chinese? Are you going to be happy if you waste 10 years of your life learning Chinese with a fucking terrible method that doesn't work and you have no outcomes to show for it? How about you quit your job and you spend $100,000 studying Chinese, which all kinds of people do, and you really have nothing to show for it? Are you going to be happy? Or you can be happy with a huge sacrifice of years of your life, career opportunities, all the other things you could have done, and you can't really talk Chinese for shit at the end of that process? Is that happiness? Because you enjoyed yourself along the way, because you never admitted to yourself the reality of what language learning is, the ways in which it's not fun. It's never going to be fun. It's denigrating and humiliating in a way that's very similar to military training, to drill and repetition. It's very similar to, if you've ever seen like on a documentary film about how ballet dancers are taught, even how chorus line dancers in Las Vegas, that tradition of dance. It looks militaristic. It looks denigrating. There's one person shouting. Everyone has to do exactly the same steps in exactly the same order. And it is a huge burden of sheer memorization. Dance is a great example of, I don't know, an art form, a technique that involves memorization. Which one is more complex? Which one is more demanding? The type of memorization you need to move your feet to the beat in just the right way, or to actually carry on a discussion in Chinese of philosophy, politics. You have a split second to hear something, comprehend it, understand it, and reply verbally. To read a newspaper article in Chinese and then sit there with your pen on a piece of paper and write out an intelligent response to it. Now, I am saying in the very title of this video that what Steve is doing, Lingosteve, that this is a scam. Now, I want to be clear. As you get on in life, you're going to see this. Not all scams are about money. I have no reason to think Steve is motivated by money. I have every reason to think he's motivated by fame, ego, self-indulgence, all kinds of other factors. I have a robust background in the study of religion, including cult groups. When people look at a cult, very often their first assumption is that the cult leader is trying to get as much money as possible out of his or her followers. Then normally the second presumed motive is sex. They're trying to get laid. They're trying to have sex with their followers. No. In many, many cases, the cult exists as an end in itself. Sometimes the leadership exists as an end in itself, but sometimes not even that. Sometimes cult leaders are genuinely humble people who believe in the cause. They're not self-aggrandizing. They're not even on an ego trip. Okay? There are all kinds of scams that exist for reasons other than money. And again, I'm not saying Steve's motives are pure. I'm just saying they're not necessarily financial in nature. How many YouTube videos can you see right now that promote a fake cure for cancer? And the person in the video themselves, they do not in any way benefit from this. Like, they aren't the doctor. They aren't the ones selling you the pill, the tincture, the herb, or it's even just a diet they're promoting. You know, they don't run a restaurant selling this food. They're just telling you what foods you should go and buy. How about irritable bowel syndrome? I mean, disease is less deadly than cancer. There are so many videos of people explaining to you how to solve your problems, and it really is a scam. They really are part of a scam, and they may not stand to benefit at all by promoting this scam. They may not make any money. They may not get laid. Or the way in which they benefit is, like Steve Kaufmann here, the thrill of reaching 20,000 viewers. Now, very quick thought experiment. How many viewers would he reach if he said the diametric opposite of what he's saying here? Okay, I can just read off these titles. When learning a language, don't study the basics. It's quoting him, not me. Don't try to memorize vocabulary. You can't memorize the language. In this latest video, 23,000 views. So you should just get out there and enjoy life. Just have a vagabond approach to learning language. A vagabond approach. Huh, Steve? A vagabond approach. I know a whole lot of white boys who lived like vagabonds in Thailand for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, never learned the language worth a damn. They enjoyed their lives. Those guys. Oh, Steve, you have no idea what pleasures of the senses these white men in Thailand endured during those years. They went from the bookstore to the brothel and back again. They went from the beach to the top of the highest mountain. You know, they saw the ocean. They saw the snow-capped peaks of a tropical mountain. They saw the jungles. Oh, Steve, you can while away 5, 10, 15 years in Thailand and never achieve basic comprehension of the language. Never distinguish between two different consonant sounds. that are crucial to that particular language, or two consonants that we don't have in English. Let's say a consonant with Thai, Lao, Cambodian, with those languages, maybe 10 different vowel sounds. Like they sound the same to you. You never figured out that to an indigenous person there, to a native speaker of that language, oh, those are not the same vowel sound, or and this kind of thing. You got to nail that to communicate this language. Thailand's a great example. Everyone's friendly towards you. Everyone's positive and encouraging as you go on babbling complete incoherent nonsense, and they're very happy to take your money. You can go on permanent vacation town 50 years. You can live like a vagabond, like Steve is endorsing here. What about the actual outcomes? Look, it's a profound question. What is the meaning of what is the meaning of life, and what's the meaning of happiness, of being happy in life? I just heard my rival YouTube channel, an unrepentant atheist, giving a sermon that what he thinks is important in life is to sin as much as possible, is to get out there and enjoy life as much as possible by sinning. Recklessly embrace sin. He spent a lot less time in Thailand than I. The whole time I was in Thailand, I had utterly puritanical attitudes and looked upon these white tourists and white retired men with a certain degree of horror. I have all these fine notions of duty and honor and what have you. I'm just not wired up in this way. But you know what? Stuart on his YouTube channel, he certainly makes a solid case that you're better off devoting yourself to a life of sin than, say, a life of piety, than being beholden to an abstract notion of virtue, or a non-existent God that presides over this notion of virtue. So on and so forth. There are certainly some things you can do with your life that compare very poorly to a life of total self-indulgence and sin. Okay, so that's an interesting question. But this raises two very closely parallel questions, Steve. Okay, if you really think your method of language education makes people happier, really, why don't you measure that? Why don't you have a measurable outcome, right? Happiness, enjoyment, that can be quantified. That can be right. Okay, explain a little bit further with me. And then on the other hand, if you actually believe your method of language education gets better outcomes, why don't you measure that? Why don't you have a measurement of these better outcomes? Why aren't I looking at proof that, oh no, memorizing verb endings. Oh no, that's not effective at all. Memorizing the correct spelling of a word. I'll give you a great example. Even Greek, modern Greek, it's pretty much the same French Greek. You don't think memorizing the correct spelling of a word as something distinct from how it's pronounced. You don't think that's an effective method for modern Greek. No, even Spanish. Big gap between how words sound and how they're spelled in Spanish. No. You don't think for Chinese, right? The greatest gap imaginable between orthography and phonetics. You don't think there's a burden of just memorizing the pinyin, memorizing the phonetic transcription, memorizing how it sounds, right? Memorizing how it's used in a sentence, right? Which is not the same in Chinese as the distinction between a noun and a verb and an adjective, but still for all the European languages, you have to memorize that. Is this a noun? Is this a verb? Is this an adjective? How does it appear in a sentence? For Chinese, it's a similar thing. What position is it in a sentence? What kind of patterns does it fit into in a sentence? And with Chinese, how it's written. Oh, no. The people who memorize that stuff, if you actually measure the outcomes, right? What are the outcomes going to be? How much they learned after 6 months? How much they learned after 2 years? How much they learned? Oh no. The outcomes are just so much better. So much better for the people who followed your fucking methods, Steve. So if you go to the U.S. diplomatic corps right now and say, look, guys, I'll prove this to you. This is easy. You have 5,000 people going through language training for the U.S. diplomatic corps, right? And these are highly paid, highly educated people. They're guaranteed a job for life in this bureaucratic service. It's a unique scenario in many ways. It's not like high school students. It's not like you have a bunch of mopey high school students show up like, I don't even want to learn French. My parents are forcing me to learn it. No. Highly educated, highly motivated people show up to learn your language. Say, okay, so 2,500 of you, you're going to do this hard, brutal, denigrating process of memorization. And 2,500 of you are instead going to follow Lingosteve's method. But you see the question I'm asking here? You can have two different methods. You can have two different measurements for these methods, right? Maybe you're right, Steve. Maybe the people who follow your method are happier. Maybe they enjoy themselves more, right? But do you really think they're going to learn more of the language when you test their actual effective ability, reading comprehension, writing comprehension, speaking comprehension, listening comprehension? When you objectively test that, do you think your group following your methods will get the better outcome? And hey, let's stick with the diplomatic corps. Even if you ask these people, so how happy are you? You know, a battery of 20 different questions from 20 different, how much did you enjoy these classes? How much did you enjoy your spare time just walking around taking it easy while the other group was getting their asses kicked, being forced through denigrating, boring memorization, boot camp style, military style, language drill repetition, et cetera, and being tested and cross-examined. It's a really tough approach to language. Like, okay, so how much do you enjoy yourself? And tell me something. How much happiness are you going to feel when you find out that you've been kicked out of the diplomatic corps because you can't speak, read, or write this language for shit, whereas the other people who did the hard work get the results, so they get the job and you don't? So how do you feel? Oh, yeah, you were going to earn more than $100,000 a year in the diplomatic corps, and now you're not because you fucked up. You used the wrong language learning method. You wasted many years of your life and many thousands of dollars, and you never get that back learning this language with a bad method, and now you have bad outcomes. Now you are fundamentally not competent in the language. End of story. What is the difference between a scam and a sincere recommendation for something that works, whether that be learning a language or the cure for cancer? The difference is outcome evaluation. The difference is that you actually have survival rates for treating people with cancer with this method as opposed to that method. The difference is, and Steve doesn't even do this as a thought experiment. He doesn't even think through hypothetically what would the outcomes be and how would we measure them, which is a very, very sure sign that the whole thing really is a scam. It really is just about your ego, Steve, and you pandering to this audience of 20,000 people who tune in to hear you tell them what they want to hear. And what they want to hear is just as ridiculous as saying, don't worry about it. You're gonna be a great dancer. Just go and enjoy yourself at the nightclub, honey. Go have a good time. Be a vagabond. That's his term. Just take it easy. Just enjoy life. And you'll pick up the dance steps, no problem. You'll just pick it up spontaneously. There's no need to be hard on yourself. No need to force yourself through this process. There are two ways you can debunk a pseudo-medical claim. You can look at outcomes, and you can look at the mechanism of action, right? What is the mechanism? If you're talking about a chemical pathway, step by step, is there even a mechanism whereby plausibly this could work? And the internet today is dominated by scams of precisely this kind, whether it is in education, medicine, like sports nutrition, fitness, athleticism, how to gain muscle and lose body fat, and that kind of thing, or most troubling of all, in politics. We are confronted with one miracle cure after another, like MMT, modern monetary theory, where there's no concern with outcomes. There's no concern with looking at the real world results, and there's no concern even with looking at the mechanism of action and talking through sincerely how this possibly could have positive outcomes. Last night, I saw a man dying on the sidewalk of a drug overdose. And a 19-year-old kid, he said he was 19. It's possible he was 16, 17, 18, and just said he was 19 when I asked him how old he was. It's possible he was younger than 19. But he was 19. He was an immature 19. A 19-year-old kid threatened to murder me and tried to beat me up face to face on the street. Okay? I don't think these two examples were on the same drugs, but let me tell you something. I'm living in the middle of a social experiment. And the experiment runs as follows. The government got this brilliant idea. Their idea was the best way to reduce the number of people using cocaine is to legalize cocaine. The best way to reduce the number of people using heroin, fentanyl, methamphetamine is to legalize all of these drugs. So absurdly, both the guy who was face down on the sidewalk dying, we saw him getting picked up and put in the back of a hospital, of an ambulance, or you know, and this 19-year-old kid, they are just enjoying their civil rights. I see people smoking meth and smoking fentanyl and so on out of a glass pipe, broad daylight. They can sit on the police station steps. See it in all kinds of different buildings, front steps, frankly. I haven't seen it on the police station, but it's their right. And here I am talking to this 19-year-old kid who's freaking out and trying to beat me up. I was not afraid. I was not intimidated. And the saddest part of all is I'm sitting there and thinking, it would actually help this kid. It would literally help him if cocaine were illegal. Based on his behavior, I calls him like he was. Either he intentionally took cocaine, or it's possible this kid smoked marijuana that had cocaine in it. It really looked like a cocaine freakout. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If instead the kid's smoking meth, I don't know. This is a wealthy kid. You could tell right away. This kid is not homeless. This is a poor little rich boy lost in the mean streets of Victoria, Canada, trying to start a fight with me. You know what? It would help this kid. His whole life would have been better up to this point and forward if cocaine were illegal instead of legal. It would help this kid if he were put in prison for a few months and got clean. And that's not going to happen because we are in the middle of an experiment that nobody ever tried with drunk driving. Nobody ever said, you know what? The best way to reduce the number of drunk drivers on the road is to legalize drunk driving. The best way to reduce the number of drunk drivers on the road is to give away alcohol for free, to make sure alcohol is available at the lowest possible price and the greatest possible everywhere. You know what? We should set up special shops that will test your alcohol for purity to guarantee that people are only using the highest quality of alcohol and that it isn't mixed with other substances that could have side effects. We are in the midst of a political experiment here on a grand scale that's ruining people's lives. And it's ruining my life, even though I'm completely sober. And nobody is interested in measuring the outcomes. And nobody is even interested in thinking through the mechanism of action whereby it could possibly, hypothetically, theoretically work. Steve Kaufmann and his approach to pedagogy, his approach to language education, it's a great example of the ways in which the fundamentally thoughtless habits that are inculcated into us in the classroom, the thoughtless way in which we accept the authority and expertise of the teacher or the guru, has knock-on consequences for the ways in which we engage and do not engage with democracy, right? The political decisions we make and the political decisions of others that we, for whatever reason, resign ourselves to.